He was rich, broken, and out of options. Then a woman with worn sneakers and no fancy resume did what no one else could. You ever sit across from someone and just know they're not what you expected, but somehow exactly what you needed? That's what was running through Grant Hollow's head as he stared across the dining room table at the woman who might become his son's next caretaker. Her name was Monica Ray, 46 years old, wore a faded blue sweatshirt, gray joggers, and a pair of shoes that had clearly seen better days. Nothing about her screamed, "professional nanny." No clipboard, no flashy references, just a folded-up resume printed from the library and a calm, patient smile. Grant glanced over the paper again, pretending to read it, but his mind was elsewhere. He'd done this 6 times already, 6 different nannies in 10 months. None of them lasted more than 3 weeks. A few barely made it through day 1. "I worked with special needs children for 23 years, Monica said gently, hands folded on her lap. "Mostly kids the system gives up on." Grant blinked, raising an eyebrow. "That's vague. What kind of special needs? Cerebral palsy, nonverbal autism, traumatic brain injuries. Some had no family. Some were stuck in group homes. None of them were easy." Her voice didn't tremble. She wasn't bragging either, just stating facts, like a weather report. Still, Grant hesitated. He was used to hiring based on credentials, degrees, accolades, results. Monica didn't have any of that, and yet something about her made him pause. "You know who you're being considered for, right?" he asked. She nodded. "Eli, your son." Grant leaned back in his chair, watching her reaction. "He's 7, nonverbal, needs a walker, doesn't trust people, and he bites, sometimes." Monica gave a soft chuckle. "Biters don't scare me. A boy who bites is just trying to say something no one's hearing." That stopped Grant cold, not because it was profound, but because it was true. Eli had been trying to say something, but Grant didn't know what, and honestly, hadn't had the time to figure it out. His startup in Palo Alto was finally making waves, and investors were breathing down his neck. Since his wife, Kelly, died 2 years ago, every part of his life had been held together with duct tape and coffee. He stared at Monica, wondering what made her so calm. Maybe it was the crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, or the way she sat so still, like she wasn't in a rush to impress him. Whatever it was, it put him on edge. "You don't seem like you're here for the money," he muttered. "I'm not." Grant raised an eyebrow. "So why are you here?" Monica's eyes drifted to the hallway, where a low metallic squeak echoed, Eli's walker. The boy had woken up from his nap. Monica didn't flinch. She just said quietly, "Because I remember what it's like to be invisible, and I don't want him to feel that way." That was the first moment Grant didn't know what to say. He looked down at the table, then at the hallway, then back at her. You start Monday." But Grant still had no idea what he was inviting into his home, and into his son's world. Monday morning came with the usual chaos, emails buzzing, a missed Zoom meeting, and Eli refusing to eat breakfast again. Grant stood in the kitchen, shirt half tucked, eyes darting between his phone and his son, who sat in silence, slowly rocking back and forth in his chair. The knock on the door came right on time. 3 soft taps. Grant didn't even have to look. He knew it was her. Monica stepped inside, carrying nothing but a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder. No suitcase full of toys or behavior charts. No binder. Just that same patient expression. "Morning, Eli," she said, not looking at Grant. Eli didn't respond. He never did, especially not to strangers. But Monica didn't seem put off. She crouched slightly, not close, just low enough so she wasn't towering over him. "I like your socks," she said gently, nodding toward the bright green ones peeking out from under his sweatpants. "They remind me of sour apple candy." Still nothing. Eli looked past her, like he didn't hear her at all. Grant cleared his throat. "He won't talk. He might growl if he's in the mood." "I'm not expecting him to," Monica replied, still focused on the boy. "He doesn't owe me anything." That answer irritated Grant more than he cared to admit. Something about her casual tone made him feel like he was the outsider in his own home. "I'll be working from the study," he said, grabbing his coffee. "There's a list on the fridge, therapy times, feeding schedule, meds. Just stick to it." Monica nodded once and Grant left, shutting the study door behind him. But he didn't really work. He kept one ear tuned to the living room, half expecting to hear crying, yelling, or the sound of something breaking. Instead, there was quiet. Then soft talking. Then music? He cracked the door an inch. There was Monica, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a small xylophone on her lap. She tapped out a slow rhythm, pausing between notes. Eli stood a few feet away, watching. Not touching, not reacting, but watching. "That's a C note," she said, tapping it again. "You can hit it if you want. You don't have to. I'm just playing." Eli didn't move, but his eyes flicked, once, to the xylophone, then back up to her, and she smiled like he'd just played a full symphony. Grant didn't get it, but something in his chest felt tight. The rest of the day went by without a single meltdown. No thrown cups, no biting. Eli didn't even scream when it was time for his afternoon meds. By 4 p.m., Grant found himself hovering in the hallway again. "You spying on us, Mr. Hollow?" Monica called out without turning her head. Grant stepped into the room, a little embarrassed. "Just making sure everything's okay." "Everything's fine," she said, then added, "He ate all his applesauce. Even let me brush his hair. Not bad for day one." Grant blinked. "He never lets anyone brush his hair." Monica shrugged. Maybe no one asked nicely. But this wasn't just about a good first day. Something deeper had started, and Grant wasn't ready to admit how much that scared him. By the end of the first week, Monica had made herself a quiet fixture in the Hollow household. She didn't move things around, didn't interfere with Grant's routines. She was just there, present, like a soft hum in the background of a house that had been too quiet for too long. But Eli hadn't truly opened up yet, not fully. He tolerated her, watched her, let her comb his hair, yes, but never reached for her hand, never smiled, and never made a sound. On Thursday afternoon, the calm cracked. Monica had brought a small wooden puzzle from the local thrift shop, big, chunky animal pieces with knobs. She sat cross-legged on the carpet, setting it in front of Eli. "Want to try the giraffe?" she asked gently, holding up the piece. Eli stared at it blankly. She didn't push, just placed the giraffe on the rug beside him. Grant, watching from the hallway, leaned against the doorframe. "He hates puzzles," he said flatly. "He's never tried this one," she said without looking at him. "He threw a block at the last therapist who used one. He won't throw it at me." That kind of confidence rubbed Grant the wrong way. He stepped closer. "You've been here 4 days. That's not enough time to know what he'll do." Monica glanced up at him, calm as ever. "You're right, but it's long enough to let him decide." That's when Eli grabbed the giraffe. At first, Grant felt a flicker of hope. Then, wham! Eli slammed it into the floor hard, again and again, over and over, until the knob cracked clean off and the wood splintered. "Okay," Monica said softly, not flinching. "You didn't like that. That's all right." But Eli wasn't finished. He swung his arm toward her and knocked the rest of the puzzle out of her hands. Pieces flew across the room. He shoved the board over and let out a noise, sharp and guttural. Grant stepped forward, angry. "That's enough, Eli." "Don't yell," Monica said quickly, holding up her hand. "Let me try." Grant froze, his fists clenched. Monica crouched beside Eli, who now sat stiffly on the carpet, breathing hard, eyes wild. "I know you didn't like it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's okay. You don't have to like puzzles. You don't have to like me." Eli stared at her. She leaned forward slowly. "But you can be mad without breaking things, okay? Mad is okay. We just need a different way to show it." Eli turned his head away. Monica didn't push. She just sat down next to him, back to the wall, like she had nowhere else to be. 10 minutes passed. Grant stayed frozen by the doorway, completely unsure of who this woman was or what spells she'd cast. Eli finally turned to look at her. Then he did something that shook Grant more than the outburst had. He leaned his head gently against Monica's shoulder. Not a hug, not affection, just contact. Monica didn't say a word. She just let him rest there. Grant stepped back slowly. He returned to the study, closed the door, and sat down. But he couldn't focus. He couldn't send the email. He couldn't hear anything but the quiet thud of a boy who had never, ever done that for anyone, not even his own father. But Grant didn't know what shook him more, that Eli connected with her, or that he hadn't connected with him. By the second week, Monica had woven herself into the rhythm of the house so naturally that even the silence felt different. Not tense, not hollow, just steady. Eli still didn't speak, but he followed Monica from room to room like a quiet shadow. He'd rest his hand on her knee when she read. He'd scoot his chair a few inches closer during meals. Small things, tiny cracks in the walls he'd built around himself. One morning, Monica asked Grant if she could take Eli outside to the backyard without the usual harness. "He walks better on grass," she explained. "It's softer when he stumbles, feels less like punishment." Grant hesitated. "You're responsible if he falls." "I know." She didn't say it with pride or sass, just certainty. So Grant gave a half-hearted nod and returned to his laptop. From his office window, he watched them. Monica laid a large blanket on the grass and placed a few soft toys beside her. Eli shuffled toward her with his walker, his steps slow and clunky, but determined. Then something strange happened. Monica pulled a notepad from her tote. She drew something, a rough little picture of a bird, and held it up. "You see that?" she asked Eli. He looked. Then she reached into the grass and held up a small stick. "This is the bird's wing," she said, handing it to him. "Can you help me draw it?" Grant squinted from behind the window. Eli took the stick. He pressed it to the paper, awkwardly, slowly. It looked more like a smudge than a line, but Monica beamed like he'd just painted the Mona Lisa. "You did that," she said. "You helped." Eli didn't smile, but he made a sound, a low hum, like a purr. Grant leaned closer to the glass. Then, Monica pulled something else from her tote. A small plastic board. On it were symbols: food, drink, bathroom, happy, sad, pain. "What's that?" Grant muttered under his breath. Eli reached out. He tapped happy. Then again, then twice on more. Grant's chest tightened. He stormed out to the backyard, his voice sharper than he meant. "Where did you get that?" Monica looked up calmly. "It's a PEX board, Picture Exchange Communication System." "I know what it is," Grant snapped. "His old therapist said he wasn't ready." Monica raised her eyebrows. "They didn't say he wasn't ready. They said they didn't have the time." Grant went quiet. Eli looked between them, then carefully tapped happy again. That was the first time Monica turned serious. Her voice didn't rise, but her eyes didn't blink. "Your son is asking for more happiness," she said, "and we're standing here arguing." Grant didn't know where to put his anger. He wasn't mad at her. Not really. He was mad at how simple she made it seem. He sank onto the grass beside them, suddenly exhausted. Why hasn't anyone else ever seen this in him? Monica didn't answer right away. She just traced her finger gently across Eli's arm, showing him the picture for calm. "Because they weren't really looking," she said. Eli touched more again. Monica smiled. "More calm." He hesitated, then tapped happy. Monica grinned. "Me too." Grant looked at his son, really looked at him, for what felt like the first time in months. It wasn't that Eli had changed. It was that someone finally spoke his language. But while Monica was unlocking doors for Eli, she was about to open one Grant had buried for years, and it wouldn't be nearly as gentle. It was a Wednesday evening, and Monica had just finished bathing Eli. His towel wrapped snug around his shoulders, she wheeled him gently into his bedroom, humming something slow under her breath. A song Grant didn't recognize. Something about the sea and coming home. Eli was calm, peaceful even. Monica laid him down, tucked him in, then stepped out quietly and walked into the kitchen to grab her bag. Grant was sitting at the table with his laptop open, barely blinking at the screen. "He asleep?" he asked without looking up. Monica nodded. "Out like a light." He asked for calm twice. I think he just likes the word. Grant gave a soft snort. "I think he likes you." She smiled. "I like him too." She slung her bag over her shoulder, then paused. "Can I ask you something?" Grant closed the laptop. "Sure." "That binder in the office, the one with the therapy notes, why does it stop in February?" Grant stiffened. "What?" "The log, it's detailed. Daily records, progress charts, notes, but it cuts off mid-February without explanation." He stood slowly. "That's none of your business." Monica didn't flinch. "You hired me to care for Eli. If something happened that changed his behavior, I need to know." I said drop it. Monica took a breath. "Grant, something happened, didn't it? Grant looked away, jaw tight. Monica stepped closer. You can yell. You can kick me out. But that little boy can't speak for himself. So I'm asking you, what changed? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then quietly, almost to himself, he muttered, his old therapist, Warren Kane. Monica blinked. The one who filled out all those notes? Grant nodded, slowly. He came highly recommended, cost more per hour than most lawyers. Eli was making small progress. Then one day, he stopped wanting to go near him, screamed at the sight of him. Her voice dropped. What happened? I don't know, Grant said. One day I came home early, found Kane yelling. Not loud, just cruel, mocking him, saying things like, you'll never talk, you'll always be broken. Monica's face turned cold. I fired him on the spot, Grant continued. Tried to report it, but he disappeared, shut down his practice, vanished. She sat down slowly. And you didn't tell Eli's new therapists? I didn't want them thinking he was ruined. There was silence. Monica stared at the wall, hands clasped. You know, sometimes trauma doesn't scream. Sometimes it sits there, quiet, until someone asks the right question. Grant looked up at her, voice shaky. I didn't want to admit I failed him. Monica's tone was gentle but firm. You didn't fail him by hiring the wrong person. You fail him by staying silent about it. He nodded, eyes glassy. I thought the money could fix it, that if I gave him the best doctors, the best gear, I could undo what happened. She looked him in the eye. You can't buy healing, but you can show up. That's what he needs. He sat back down. I'm not used to people calling me out in my own house. I'm not used to working for people who let me speak. That made them both laugh, just a little. Monica pulled something from her bag, a small, soft cloth pouch. She placed it gently on the table. What's this? He asked. A gift. For Eli. Hand-stitched emotion cards with real fabric textures help some kids express what they can't verbalize. Grant picked one up. It was labeled frustrated, stitched in rough, itchy fabric. Another said safe, made of something soft and smooth, like fleece. You made these? Years ago, for a girl in Louisiana, nonverbal autism, couldn't say a word but showed you everything through touch. He looked at the pouch again, then up at her. Thank you. Monica stood and grabbed her keys. Tell him it's okay to be angry, but remind him he's never alone. But Grant didn't realize Monica wasn't just teaching Eli how to express emotion. She was teaching him too, and that lesson was about to get a lot more personal. The next day, the rain started early, hard, cold sheets of it tapping against the windows like fingers trying to get in. Eli hated storms, always had. The thunder made him tremble, the lightning froze him in place. That morning, he wouldn't leave his bed. Grant stood outside Eli's room, holding his coffee like it might keep him grounded. Inside, Monica sat beside the boy, gently stroking his back. He's not eating, Grant said softly. He's scared, Monica replied. He thinks something bad is coming. Grant took a deep breath. He's not wrong. Monica looked up. What do you mean? He paused, then stepped into the room, sat at the foot of the bed, and for once didn't hide behind his laptop, his phone, or a wall of sarcasm. I wasn't supposed to be a dad alone, he said. I love Kelly. I really did, but I was never the glue of this family. She was. Eli shifted slightly, his small fingers curling around Monica's wrist. She died so fast, Grant continued. Ovarian cancer, stage 4, gone in 6 months. I thought I'd have more time to ask her things, like how to be his safe place. Monica listened, didn't interrupt. I didn't cry at her funeral, he whispered. Not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't afford to. I had employees, investors, a launch coming up. I told myself I'd grieve later. Monica nodded slowly. Did you ever get to? Grant laughed bitterly. No, because Eli stopped talking. He stopped everything. And I didn't know what to do with a grieving kid who couldn't tell me what he needed. He didn't stop talking, Monica said gently. He just started using silence. That hit something deep. Grant ran his hands through his hair, leaning forward. I'd walk past his room at night and I'd hear him. making these tiny sounds, not words, just noises, like he was calling someone who wasn't there. Monica's voice was quiet. He was. He was calling her. Grant swallowed hard. He used to sleep on her chest, he murmured. Every night. That's the only time he was calm. I'd find them like that in the mornings, her arms around him, his fingers tangled in her hair. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Monica said, "You know, when I was 9, my mother went to prison. She was caught with pills that weren't hers. I never saw her again." Grant looked up. Monica kept her eyes on Eli. "I bounced through 6 different homes, different rules, different smells, but I remember one woman, Mrs. Deborah. She didn't try to fix me. She just gave me a drawer in her kitchen, said it was mine just for my things. It sounds small, but for the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere." Eli shifted again, eyes fluttering. "I came back to kids like him because I know what it's like to feel like no one's coming for you," Monica whispered. "To think you're too hard, too broken." Grant stared at her, eyes red now. "You're not broken." She smiled. "Neither is he." He turned to Eli. "Do you think he remembers her? Really remembers her?" Monica nodded. "Not with words, but in ways that matter." Grant wiped his face with his sleeve, embarrassed. Monica stood. "You should tell him about her. Not the sad stuff, the funny stories, her laugh, her smell. Let him know it's okay to remember." Grant hesitated. "I don't know if I can do that without falling apart." "You don't have to be perfect," Monica said. "You just have to be real." Eli made a soft sound. Both of them turned to him. His hand reached toward the nightstand, toward a photo of Kelly. He touched it, then touched his chest. Grant's breath caught. Monica whispered, "He misses her, just like you do." But love isn't always loud, and Grant was finally starting to hear what had been whispered to him all along. It was supposed to be a quick trip. Grant had flown to Santa Rosa for a last-minute investor dinner. In and out. 24 hours max. Monica assured him she had everything under control, and he didn't doubt that. Not anymore. Still, something in his gut twisted as the plane touched back down the next evening. A kind of tension he couldn't name. The car ride home felt longer than it should have. When he pulled into the driveway, the sky was just beginning to dim, the clouds hanging heavy and low. The porch light was on. The living room window glowed gold. But what made him freeze wasn't the house. It was the sound. Laughter. Not Monica's, Eli's. It was small, croaky, like a broken violin, but real. He stepped inside slowly, not wanting to break the spell. The smell of apples and cinnamon filled the air. Monica must have been baking again. The house felt warm in a way it hadn't since Kelly. He followed the sound to the den, and what he saw broke something wide open in him. Eli was on the floor, crisscrossed on a large foam mat. His walker sat nearby. He wasn't using it, just sitting. His arms moved clumsily but deliberately. In front of him sat Monica, holding up a mirror. They were playing a game. "Okay," Monica said gently. "Show me proud." Eli grunted and tapped his chest twice. Then he smiled. "That's right," she beamed. "You should be proud." He clapped. Then she held up another picture. "Now, what about tired?" Eli yawned on cue, then slumped forward, giggling into his palms. That laugh, that sound, cut through Grant like lightning. He stumbled back a step. The floor creaked beneath him. Monica looked up. Their eyes met. She didn't speak. Didn't need to. Eli turned his head and saw his father. He froze. For a second, Grant thought it would all fall apart, that the joy would vanish the second he stepped into the room. But then, slowly, Eli lifted his arms, not wide, not like a toddler asking to be picked up, just forward, palms up, like he was offering something. Grant stepped forward, knees weak. Eli tapped his fingers together. More time, more love, more this. Grant dropped to his knees, pulling his son gently into his chest. Eli didn't resist. He leaned in, small hands clutching the fabric of Grant's shirt. "I missed you," Grant whispered, voice cracking. "I missed so much." Eli pressed his cheek against his father's chest. Monica sat silently nearby, not intruding, just there, present, Steady. After a long moment, Grant looked up at her. His voice was quiet. How did you do this? Monica shook her head. He did this. I just listened. Grant looked back down at his son, brushing a hand over his soft curls. I forgot how to do that, he murmured. She didn't judge him, didn't throw it in his face, just said, It's not too late. He kissed the top of Eli's head. I don't know how to do this without screwing it up. Monica smiled, eyes soft. You don't have to know. You just have to show up. They sat in silence after that. No big speeches, no declarations. Just the three of them, in a room that finally felt full again. But what Grant realized in that moment wasn't just that his son had come alive again. It was that he had, too. The next morning felt different. There was no big event, no breakthrough moment. Just oatmeal on the stove, birds chirping out the window, and a boy humming quietly at the kitchen table while drawing on the back of a takeout menu. Grant poured 2 cups of coffee, set one in front of Monica. She looked up, amused. That for me or bribery for staying another week? Both, he said, smirking. They sat across from each other in comfortable silence. Eli tapped on the table with his crayon, 3 slow beats. Grant looked over. The boy pointed to a smudged heart he'd drawn. Grant blinked. Is that for me? Eli nodded once. It was so simple, so small. But Grant felt something shift. Later that afternoon, they all sat in the backyard, Monica reading aloud, Grant beside her, and Eli stretched out on a blanket between them. The sun warmed their skin. A breeze stirred the trees. Monica paused mid-sentence. You're doing better, she said without looking at Grant. He chuckled. I haven't yelled in 3 days. That's progress. No, she said, turning to him. You're paying attention. He nodded slowly. I'm just trying not to miss it anymore. Monica looked over at Eli. Kids like him, they grow on their own schedule, but when they let you in, you better be there. Grant's voice dropped. Thank you for seeing him when I couldn't. She tilted her head. You were grieving. Doesn't make you blind. Just buried. He took a deep breath. I want you to stay, not just as a nanny, as part of this, whatever this is. She smiled, soft and warm. I'll stay as long as he needs me. He looked at Eli, who was now holding up a picture of the 3 of them, his crayon version of Monica, Grant, and himself, all smiling. That picture would hang on Grant's office wall from that day forward. That evening, as the sun set over the hills of Northern California, Grant tucked Eli into bed. He told him a story about Kelly, about how she used to sing him to sleep even when he didn't cry. And for the first time, Eli reached up and touched Grant's face, one soft touch, no words, but it said everything. Some people measure success in millions. Others measure it in milestones. But sometimes, real wealth is found in the quiet return of joy. One moment, one breath, one connection at a time. If you've ever been the person who held space for someone when they couldn't speak for themselves, thank you. And if you're still learning how to show up, it's not too late. Start today. Someone might be waiting.